In the town of Igbodala, where the air always carried a faint scent of rain and mystery, a strange church had risen overnight at the edge of the forest, a massive, white tent crowned with golden flags and loudspeakers that screamed deliverance, miracles, power. From dawn till midnight, the people called it the Fire of Glory Assembly, led by a man named Prophet Mando, who claimed to heal the blind and raise the dead. His voice thundered across the town like a storm, and people from nearby villages came running, carrying sick relatives, barren women, and empty wallets full of faith. Among them was a humble widow named Mama Ifama, who lived with her teenage daughter, Adaze. They had struggled since the death of Ifyama's husband, barely surviving by selling roasted corn by the roadside. When Prophet Mando's miracles began filling the radio waves and posters promised instant wealth through faith, Mama Ifama's heart stirred with desperate hope. "Maybe this is God's answer," she said one evening, clutching the church's flyer. Adaze frowned. "Mama, something about that man doesn't feel right. Real power doesn't scream for attention." But her mother was already convinced. The next morning, dressed in her best wrapper, she dragged Adaze to the church. The moment they arrived, ushers in white gloves shouted, "The prophet is coming," and the crowd erupted like a storm. Prophet Mando entered, flanked by men in black suits, carrying a golden staff and a Bible wrapped in red cloth. His eyes glittered strangely, as though reflecting fire. He called people to the altar, laying hands and shouting, "Power, receive it." Some fell to the ground trembling, others screamed and wept. When it was Mama Ifama's turn, he touched her forehead and whispered, "Your destiny is tied to your daughter. Bring her to me for cleansing tonight, alone." His tone sent a chill down Adi's spine. That night, as thunder rumbled, they returned to the church tent. Inside, the lights flickered dimly, candles burning in a circle, and Prophet Mando stood at the center, chanting words in a language Adaze did not understand. "Kneel, child," he commanded. "The spirit of poverty must leave you." Adaze hesitated, but her mother urged her forward. Suddenly, Mando raised his hand, revealing a small black charm wrapped in red cloth. "This is the key to your family's deliverance," he shouted. Adi's instincts screamed danger. "Mama, this is not of God," she cried. But before her mother could respond, a gust of wind burst through the tent, extinguishing the candles. In the sudden darkness, Mando's voice shifted, no longer human, but deep and growling. "You question my power," he hissed. Lightning flashed, revealing his eyes glowing bright red. The congregation that had filled the tent was gonna know only shadows moved around them, whispering prayers that sounded more like curses. Adaze grabbed her mother's hand and screamed, "Run!" They stumbled out into the storm, rain slashing their faces. Behind them, the tent collapsed, as if struck by invisible hands. By dawn, when villagers came to see what happened, they found nothing, no chairs, not even footprints, only ashes scattered across the wet earth. That morning, Mama Ifama wept in silence, realizing that greed and desperation had almost delivered her soul into darkness. "We sought miracles," she whispered, "but nearly found the devil instead." From that day on, Adaeus and her mother never entered any strange church again. And when people spoke of Prophet Mando, they said he was never a man of God, but something far older, something that fed on faith itself. The following weeks brought unease to Igbo. strange whispers floated through the town like smoke rumors of people disappearing after visiting miracle centers and returning days later with empty eyes and strange marks carved on their wrists. Mama Ifema tried to ignore them, but each night she woke up sweating, haunted by dreams of Prophet Mando's red glowing eyes and the sound of thunder echoing inside her skull. Adaze noticed her mother's decline and begged, "Mama, let us go see the elder priest at St. Anthony's Church. He can pray for us." Reluctantly, Mama Ifema agreed, and together they made their way across the old footpath leading to the stone chapel that had stood for generations. There they met Father Chukwu, an elderly priest whose calm eyes carried both wisdom and weariness. He listened silently as they recounted their experience. When they finished, he said softly, "My children, what you encountered was not the power of God, but the shadow that mimics it. The devil knows the language of miracles." He handed them a small wooden cross carved from sacred Iroko wood and warned, "Keep this close. The spirit you met may return to claim what it believes it owns." Those words froze the air between them. That night, a storm brewed, again lightning flashing over the forest. In the distance, a drumbeat echoed faintly, rhythmic and unnatural. Adaze peered through the window and saw faint lights flickering among the trees, forming the shape of the vanished tent. "Mama," she whispered, trembling, "it's back." But when they rushed outside with neighbors, the forest was silent. Only the chirping of crickets and the rustle of leaves. The villagers dismissed it as fear, but Adaze knew what she saw. The next day, she went to the marketplace, where an old blind woman who sold herbs called out to her, "Child of the corn seller, the spirit follows your shadow." Shocked, Adaze asked, "What do you mean?" The woman smiled eerily. "That man of the golden staff is not gone. His body may have burned, but his spirit lingers, feeding on the faith of those who doubted him." Terrified, Adaze ran home, clutching the wooden cross. That night, as she and her mother prayed, a low hum filled the room, like the echo of a distant chant. The lamp flickered, and suddenly, Prophet Mando's voice whispered from the darkness, "You cannot run from what you touched." Mama Ifema screamed, tossing the cross toward the sound, and immediately the room filled with blinding light. When it faded, the voice was gone, replaced by the sound of rain. They sat together, trembling, realizing this was no nightmare, it was a battle between light and darkness. The next morning, they went back to Father Chukwu, who gathered elders and anointed their home with oil, praying in deep tongues. "This is not the end," he warned. "That spirit is bound to return stronger, for it was once worshipped before your fathers knew Christ." The words sent shivers through everyone present. That night, Mama Ifema burned all the flyers, oil bottles, and fake prayer cloths she had collected from Prophet Mando's tent. As the flames rose, she whispered, "Never again." The villagers watched as smoke curled toward the sky, and some wept, realizing how many of them had also been deceived by false prophets. Yet, even as peace seemed to settle, Adaze could feel a strange presence still lurking, watching from the forest, waiting for another chance to strike. Days turned into weeks, and though the air in Igbodala seemed calm, Adaze could feel something unnatural moving beneath the silence, like a snake hiding under dry leaves. The villagers had begun rebuilding their trust in old traditions, returning to ancestral shrines and true places of worship. But some still whispered Prophet Mando's name in secret, hoping his miracles would return. One evening, while Adaze fetched water at the riverbank, she heard humming, low, rhythmic, and strangely familiar. Across the rippling water, a figure stood in a white robe, face hidden, hands clasped as though in prayer. The air around him shimmered faintly. "Who are you?" she called out, heart pounding. The voice that answered was soft, yet heavy. "You carry what is mine." Terrified, she dropped her calabash and ran home, tears streaming down her face. When she told her mother, Mama Ephema froze. "It's him," she whispered. "He wants the charm you touched." But Adaze protested. Still, her mother's face showed fear she could not hide. That night, Adaze dreamed. She stood again in the tent, surrounded by people with blank faces, chanting Mando's name. In the center, the prophet held out his golden staff, whispering, "Give me your light, and I will make you eternal." When she refused, he screamed, and fire erupted around her. She woke up trembling, sweat soaking her clothes. At dawn, Father Chukwu came, his eyes grave. "He has bound himself to the spirit world," the priest said after listening to her. "But because you resisted, he cannot fully cross back. His soul now wanders between the living and the dead, seeking a host to carry his power." He paused. That host could be anyone who still calls his name. As if on cue, a knock sounded on the door. It was Neka, a young woman from the village who had once served as Mando's usher. Her eyes looked sunken, her skin pale. "Please," she begged, "the prophet calls me in my dreams. He says he is not dead, but waiting for his followers." The priest sprinkled holy water over her, but she screamed, her body convulsing violently. "He is here," she cried before collapsing. Outside, dogs began barking wildly, and a gust of hot wind blew through the village, scattering dust and ash. The people ran for shelter as the sky darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling in strange red patterns. Father Chukwu raised his hands, chanting ancient prayers, and the ground trembled. Suddenly, from the forest, a deep roar echoed, the same sound Adaze had heard in her dream. "He's coming," the priest shouted. "Everyone, to the chapel." The villagers gathered, praying and singing hymns. Inside the small stone church, candles flickered as shadows danced on the walls. Adaze held her mother's hand tightly, whispering, "I'm not afraid." The wind howled louder, and a tall, dark shape appeared at the chapel door, its outline glowing faintly like embers. The people gasped. It was the prophet, his robe burned at the edges, his eyes now hollow pits of fire. He stretched out a hand and hissed, "You took what was mine." Father Chukwu stepped forward, clutching his cross. "You have no power here," he thundered. The spirit shrieked, the walls shaking, and light burst from the cross like lightning. For a moment, everything froze. Then, with a scream that echoed through the valley, the figure exploded into a burst of smoke, vanishing into the air. When the storm cleared, silence fell. The villagers knelt in tears, realizing the evil that had haunted them was finally broken. But as Adaze looked out the church window toward the forest, she saw one ember still glowing faintly in the distance. She whispered, "It's not over." For several weeks after that terrible night, Igbadala seemed peaceful again. Birds sang, the market thrived, and laughter slowly returned to the streets. Yet an invisible weight still lingered, pressing down on the hearts of those who had once followed Prophet Mando. Adaze often walked by the forest's edge, feeling the faint pull of something calling her name from within the trees. "Forget that place," Mama Ifama warned. "The dead should not be disturbed." But Adaze could not forget the ember she'd seen glowing in the dark. She feared it meant Mando's spirit still roamed. One morning, a young boy from the village came running, breathless. "The forest is speaking," he shouted. When the elders followed him, they found strange carvings on the tree trunks, symbols of fire and eyes drawn in ash. Father Chukwu studied them with unease. "He's trying to return," he murmured. "Somebody must still be feeding his spirit." That night, a faint drumbeat echoed again through the wind, the same rhythm that had once marked Mando's healing services. In a small hut at the edge of the village, a group of his old followers had gathered secretly, led by Nika, the woman once possessed. "The prophet will rise again," she whispered, her voice trembling but determined. They lit candles and began to chant his name. As their voices rose, the air grew thick and the candles flickered violently. Suddenly, the ground shook and smoke seeped up from the floor. "He comes," Nika cried, but her scream turned to horror as her body convulsed and her eyes rolled back. From her mouth came a deep voice, not hers. "I told you I would return." The followers fled in terror, leaving her twitching on the floor. Across the village, Adaze woke from her sleep with a start, her body drenched in sweat. "Mama," she gasped, "he's back." The priest was summoned once again, and this time he came not with holy water alone, but with relics of the old faith, the carved staff of the first elder, said to hold the power of truth. Together with Adaze and a few brave villagers, he entered the forest before dawn. The trees groaned like living things, and cold mist clung to their feet. They found Nika kneeling before a charred tree, her hands bleeding, whispering prayers to something unseen. Father Chukwu raised the staff and commanded, "In the name of truth and the blood of the ancestors, reveal yourself." The mist thickened, twisting into the shape of a man cloaked in shadow. The figure's voice thundered, "You cannot destroy faith, you can only feed it." Adaze stepped forward, clutching the wooden cross the priest had once given her. "Faith without truth is death," she shouted. The figure lunged toward her, but the cross burst into light, burning brighter than the morning sun. The shadow screamed, writhing in agony as the staff struck the ground, sending a wave of fire through the forest. Trees ignited, and the symbols of eyes and flame vanished in sparks. When the light faded, Nika lay unconscious, freed at last, and the forest fell silent. The villagers wept with relief, but Father Chukwu warned, "Evil never truly dies, only sleeps when forgotten. Keep your faith pure, or it will find another mask to wear." As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the burned trees, revealing the old ruins of an ancient shrine beneath the ashes, a place older than the church, where spirits had once been worshipped long before Mando was born. Adaze gazed at it with awe and fear, realizing the prophet had only been a vessel for something ancient, something that might one day rise again. When the fire in the forest finally died and the sun rose over Igbo, peace seemed to return, but deep within the ashes of the old shrine, something continued to pulse faintly, a remnant of the power that had once called itself Prophet Mando. The villagers believed the battle was over, and in many ways it was. Yet Adaze could not shake the feeling that the victory came with a price. The priest fell ill soon after that night, his strength fading as if the spirit he'd cast out had taken part of his life force with it. "Do not weep for me, Father," Chukwu told Adeus, smiling weakly from his bed. "Light always demands sacrifice." Within weeks, he passed away, and the people buried him beside the mango tree behind the chapel. His staff, now split in two, was placed over his grave. Mama Ifema tried to comfort Ades, saying, "He finished his work. Now we must guard what he left behind." But fate was not yet done testing them. One night, as the wind howled through the empty marketplace, Ades heard footsteps outside. When she looked through the window, she saw a hooded figure standing beneath the moonlight, its body faintly glowing with golden embers. "Who's there?" she whispered. The figure lifted its head, revealing the face of Nikolaev, but her eyes blank. "He calls for you," she said, her voice hollow. "He is bound, but you are the key." Ades froze, every instinct screaming to run, but her courage rooted her in place. "Tell him I am not his vessel," she replied firmly. Nika tilted her head, a faint smile crossing her lips before she vanished into the mist. The next morning, the villagers found her body near the forest edge, her hand clutching the remains of a black charm. The elders decided to perform a cleansing ritual for the entire town, blending the old ancestral rites with the new faith's prayers. For 3 days, drums echoed, fires burned, and people confessed every hidden secret, pouring away bottles of fake anointing oils they had bought from false prophets. On the final night, the sky was clear, the stars bright, and for the first time in months, the air felt pure. During the ritual, Ades stood at the center, holding the priest's broken staff. As she prayed, a warm wind swirled around her, carrying whispers that sounded like Father Chukwu's voice. "Guard the truth, my child. False light always returns wearing a new robe." Tears filled her eyes as she felt the weight of that responsibility. After the ceremony, the elders declared the forest sacred ground, forbidden for anyone to enter. They built a stone marker inscribed with words that read, "Here fell the false prophet. Let faith be guided by truth." Life slowly returned to normal. Children played again, laughter filled the market, and Mama Ifema's roasted corn stall once more filled the air with sweet aroma. Yet sometimes, when the night was quiet and the wind blew from the direction of the forest, Ades could swear she heard faint echoes of distant singing, voices chanting the same hymn Mando once used to deceive the people. She would grip the cross around her neck and whisper, "Not again." Over the years, Ades grew into a respected teacher and later a spiritual counselor. People came from faraway villages to hear her speak of the difference between faith and manipulation, between miracles and deceit. Her story spread far and wide, warning others to test every spirit before believing, to seek God in truth, not spectacle. And though she lived to a ripe old age, she never forgot the night she looked into the eyes of falsehood disguised as holiness. When she finally died peacefully beside her mother's grave, the villagers said they saw a single beam of light break through the clouds, shining directly on the mango tree at the chapel, proof that the light of truth, once kindled, can never truly be extinguished.